What's something people don't know about St. Mary's Church? Angela stepped into St. Mary's Church. The heavy oak door creaked shut behind her. Dust motes danced in the sunlight, piercing through the stained glass windows. An unnatural chill clung to her skin. She shivered, pulling her jacket tighter. She had come seeking solace, a quiet place to reflect. But today, comfort was replaced by unease. A low hum vibrated through the stones. Angela's footsteps echoed eerily. She reached the altar, its surface gleaming faintly. A single candle flickered, casting shadows. She knelt, bowing her head in prayer. The silence was broken by a faint whisper, like rustling silk. Angela stood up, her breath catching in her throat. The whisper came again, closer this time, sending shivers down her spine. She looked around, but the church remained empty. The shadows pressed in, suffocating her with their unseen presence. She walked down the aisle, her pace quickening. The air grew heavy, making it difficult to breathe. The temperature plummeted, and she could see her breath. The feeling of being watched intensified. A cold gust swept through, extinguishing the candle. Angela gasped, her hand flying to her mouth. The whispers grew louder, swirling around her. She fumbled for her phone, desperate for light. The screen flickered to life, casting a weak beam. The shadows recoiled, revealing the empty space. But the whispers persisted, clawing at her sanity. The light from her phone danced across the aged stone walls, revealing grotesque figures in the shadows. The faces of gargoyles and demons seemed to leer at her from the high arches, their expressions contorted in silent mockery. The stained glass saints, once serene and comforting, now appeared menacing, their eyes following her every move. The whispers intensified, coalescing into distinct words, though she couldn't quite decipher their meaning. They seemed to be chanting, a mournful dirge that resonated with the very stones of the church. The shadows began to move, detaching themselves from the walls and swirling around her like living entities. They reached out with spectral fingers, brushing against her skin, sending chills down her spine. She stumbled backward, her heart pounding in her chest, the phone slipping from her grasp. The screen shattered on the stone floor, plunging the church back into darkness. Blindly, Angela reached out, her hands grasping at the empty air. She stumbled forward, her foot catching on something on the floor. She fell, hitting the cold stone with a thud. The whispers seemed to laugh, a mocking chorus that echoed through the darkness. She scrambled to her feet, her breath coming in ragged gasps. Terror threatened to overwhelm her, but a flicker of defiance ignited within her. She would not succumb to this unseen force. She would face it, whatever it was. She closed her eyes, taking a deep breath, and focused her senses. She could feel the presence of something nearby, something cold and malevolent. It radiated an aura of sorrow and despair, a palpable wave of negativity that washed over her. She opened her eyes, peering into the darkness. Slowly, a form began to materialize before her. A figure shrouded in shadows, its features indistinct, but its presence undeniable. The whispers emanated from it, a mournful wail that pierced the silence. The figure hovered in the air, its form shifting and swirling, as if composed of smoke and shadows. It seemed to be reaching out to her, its spectral fingers beckoning her closer. Angela stood her ground, her fear battling with a strange sense of curiosity. As the figure drew nearer, its features began to resolve. She could make out the pale face of a woman, her eyes hollow and filled with an unbearable sadness. Her lips moved, forming silent words, words that Angela could somehow understand. The woman was telling her story, a tale of betrayal and heartbreak, of a love lost and a life tragically cut short. She had been murdered within the very walls of the church, her spirit trapped, forever bound to the place of her demise. Angela listened, her heart aching for the woman's suffering. She understood now why the church felt so cold, so heavy with sorrow. The ghostly figure began to fade, dissolving back into the shadows. The whispers subsided, replaced by a heavy silence. Angela stood alone, the woman's story echoing in her mind. Along with the sadness, a lingering dread remained. Slowly, Angela made her way towards the door. As she pushed open the heavy oak door, a gust of wind swept through. Angela stepped out into the sunlight, blinking against the brightness. She turned back to look at St. Mary's, its facade now etched with new meaning.